Doing a second set is neither necessary nor desirable. In fact, it would be the biggest mistake you can make.
Well, damn, I'm guilty of at least 2 sets.
Me too.
All right, so let's talk about sets and reps today, because I think there is a lot that we need to learn. And that, for you who don't know, that's Mike Mentzer. And he was a proponent of 1 set, all out, to failure. And that was your workout. Like, that was it. You did 1 set. You did a couple warm-up sets. You did 1 working set. Is there any value to that for you, specifically? Because if there is, then I think maybe, are we all screwing it up?
I hope not.
Are we doing too many sets and reps? All right, well, let's talk about it. So first of all, you got to ask yourself, what is your goal? Because it has to all start from a goal. And most people have a goal of building muscle. I'd say that's predominantly why a lot of people want to lift weights, right? But there are others that are pursuing strength with a priority, or they're athletes trying to improve performance, right? Or they're trying to improve endurance. In all of those cases, none of these would be the proper recommendation for me for doing Mike Mentzer style training.
Right.
1 set's not going to cut it when you're trying to build strength, when you're trying to improve endurance, when you're trying to become a better athlete. You need more repetitions, you need more practice, you need more fine-tuning of the mechanics of what you're doing. So that's not who this is for. However, again, most of us are sitting here trying to improve our muscle size and hypertrophy. Now, I want to go back to that clip, and I want you to listen very carefully. You heard the first 7 seconds of it. Listen very carefully to what Mike says in the next 20 seconds. It's just 27 seconds long. All right, let me play this clip for you. Again, listen very carefully to what he says.
Doing a second set is neither necessary nor desirable. In fact, it would be the biggest mistake you can make, because insofar that you train at all, you make an inroad. Well, some people might say, well, Mike, if I do a second set, maybe I'll get a little bit more growth stimulation. But then I point out, whatever little bit extra growth stimulation, you made a doubly deeper recovery ability, so that negates any greater growth stimulation.
So, where does that leave you? Well, I think there's a lot of merit to that. See, when Mike trained, he was advocating extremely high intensity efforts. The reason why you could do 1 set in heavy duty style training was because the effort level was something of which you really don't ever put forth in any other workout. It's high effort. The highest effort you could exert.
Balls out, you would say?
Balls out, absolutely. And then some. And basically making sure that you're reaching failure for sure, and sometimes even beyond failure, by having a pre-exhaust exercise right into a compound and going all the way to failure. Okay, so what does that do? Well, it forces us to have to ask a question. And that is, a lot of us confuse 2 different ends of the spectrum here. And that is the goal of your workout to find the maximal tolerable volume that you can handle, right, or workload that you can handle, and still make gains? Or, as Mike would want you to do instead, is it to find the minimal effective volume? Like, what is that minimal stimulus that you can find that allows you to start to see additional progress, in this case in the form of new muscle gains? And if you're not using steroids, this is a key point, because a lot of the guys you get your information from, they're using steroids. And they want you to think that there is this infinite amount of recovery that you have. There is not. If you're a natural lifter, there is not. You have a defined amount. Okay, so you need to find that defined amount. I think when you're trying to determine the number of sets, it makes a little bit of sense here to start low.
Yeah.
Because if you start low and you give as much of an effort as you can, I'm not saying ranked beginners go out and do this. Ranked beginners need to learn coordination of a movement. They need to learn the fundamentals of lifting. They need to get a good base of training underneath them. But once you become a novice lifter, if you're trying to gain muscle size, if you put forth that maximum intensity and you reach a point of failure, true failure on the set, you've removed all the guesswork of whether or not you've gone intense enough. Right? You're not leaving reps in reserve, which is funny because most of the reps in reserve guys are no longer reps in reserve. They're all advocating failure now, or in the last set, right? They've kind of come that way, but you're not trying to figure that part of the equation out because you've gone to the finish line. You've reached that end point. You do that and you would monitor your results. And there's always a place, as Mike would say, that you can go from there, and that is up.
Yeah.
If 1 didn't work, you know where to go. You go to 2, or you go to 3, right?
Maybe 4.
Or maybe 4. But you don't know if you start at 8 sets and you're not really getting results. Do you go up to 9 or down to 7? Do you go down to 6? Do you go down to 5? Do you go up to 12? Like you're sort of stuck in an area where you have a lot less of a scientific ability to go through a process to get to the point where you need to be.
You'd be wasting your time going up and down as opposed to just going up.
Yeah, you go up. Again, I'm just throwing it out there as an effective place for people to start when they're trying to determine how many sets is right for me. Right? The next thing I think we have to talk about, though, is repetitions, too, because in his training, Mike would say somewhere between 6 and 12, 6 and 10, 6 and 12. That's the weight that you choose that you're going to take all the way to failure. What is the right repetition range? I think one thing that science has taught us of late is that is a hell of a lot more broad than we once thought.
Yep.
It doesn't necessarily have to be in a specific range, 8 to 12 for hypertrophy or 3 to 5 for strength. Look at those that are seeking hypertrophy, you can do it at many different rep ranges. As a matter of fact, you could do it all the way up to 25 repetitions, 30 repetitions. But guess what's needed there? What's needed, Jesse?
Effort.
You need to be able to deliver that balls out, as Jesse said, to failure approach to training in order to create the stimulus that gives you that minimal effective dose. Now, the maximal tolerable volume is not necessarily that different from minimally effective because they could kind of blend a little bit. They could overlap. And the way that happens is the ball is out all the way to failure approach says, yes, here's my best effort. Did I provide enough of a stimulus for growth? Great. What if a submaximal effort plus another submaximal effort plus another submaximal effort gets you to the same point as the maximal effort? And I think we've actually seen that a little bit in studies. We've seen that 1 in the tank, 2 in the tank, if it's truly to a 1 or 2 rep in reserve effort level, because most of the time it's not. It's people are overestimating how much effort they're putting forth. But if it's truly 1 or 2 in the tank, that you can still get the types of gains you could by going to failure. Well, again, the accumulation of a few of those sets could equal out to what you might see in terms of the stimulus you get from the 1 overall set. So then it's like, what's the determination factor for you, whether you're going to go balls out for 1 or more sets? Well, a lot of it has to come down to time. A lot of it comes down to your ability to handle discomfort, because that really high effort, high intensity workout demands a high level of effort. And again, as you become more experienced, it might be even a little bit more than that because your body can tolerate more. So you really need to push yourself. I find, though, that guys that have a lot of experience with lifting kind of enjoy that effort at some point, right? They start to actually like it, right? But don't fall in love with that effort, because the goal of being in the gym is to stimulate and then get out and go grow, because the growing happens outside the gym, and you have to understand that is where Mike was right. The growth happens outside. In the gym is the stimulation, and when you think of it that way, it's not about just sticking around to get a pump and doing all the things you're doing there, because you are creating a further inroad to your recovery and your pursuit. Now, there's also a little bit of focus on I say a little bit, there's a lot of bit of focus on how we do our repetitions, because not just how many repetitions and how many sets, but what about the consideration to how you're doing your repetitions? And there's a lot of focus right now being placed on the minimal portion of the range of motion, like the stretch position of an exercise. And I've gone into this in another video, and I'll go into it again in more depth here. We're going to find that there's a lot to learn, and a lot of what's being said right now is an incomplete picture. Much more research is going to be done here that's going to wind up proving to you that don't start throwing out the rest of the range of motion just yet, especially if you're interested in strength and athleticism. You don't do that. But as far as the hypertrophy benefits of the stretch position is the terminal portion of an eccentric or elongation of a muscle. And we know that in and of itself is a stimulus for growth. So the terminal portion of it, the part where you're stretched, applies a tension in and of itself because it's stretched. But then you add the extra load there, you've got 2 stimulus for growth. Of course it's going to work. It's always worked. But the effort of the partial repetitions, oftentimes occurring after the set's been taken to failure, is just leaning more towards supporting that kind of lower set volume where it's like, go hard, go heavy, and ensure that you've reached failure by doing a few partial repetitions because you can't get the concentric anymore.
Yeah.
You can only get a few partials with some additional eccentric overload or stretch there. Now, to take it so far as to start recommending only stretch-based exercises and literally saying that, what is it called? The face-away curl stretch?
Face-away cable curl.
Like one of these deals is a better exercise for hypertrophy for the biceps than a heavy barbell curl with a focus on a slow eccentric. I'm not ready to go there yet, and I don't think we're ever going to wind up validating that that's a superior approach. When they start putting those two things head to head and performing those with the same level of effort and intensity to failure, I don't think you're going to find that to be the case. But when you look at your training, you have to ask yourself, what is the right amount of effort that's going to guide you to the right amount of reps for you? See, we start programs, and this is very important, we start programs and programming our own workouts with the sets and the reps in mind. It's the guiding factor, and then we work around that. What I'm saying is the effort level that you're comfortable exerting, because it requires a very high level or a lesser level, that will dictate the types of volumes you need in your workouts. And you can work towards these volumes and modify them based on the results that you're seeing. You can come down, you can go up. But when you take that high intensity approach, the only way to go from there, if it's not working, is up.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a little easier progression for people to make. But stop letting sets and reps be the guiding factor. It's a big mistake when it's all about sets and reps first, and then you're like adapting your effort to the sets and reps. If you haven't seen my video on 3 sets of 12 is killing your gains, or 3 sets of 12 is kind of a major problem in your training, that was what I talked about. Was like you are adapting your effort even within a given set to make sure you reach 12 when I don't really give a shit whether you reach 12. You might have started with 3 sets of 12 in mind and wound up hitting 12, 9, and 10 or something in your reps. As long as the effort was there, it doesn't matter necessarily what the rep count was. It starts with effort. Now I want to summarize this all and kind of leave you guys with one final video here. This was something that Mike Messer said in one of these TikTok clips or something like that. One of the very few things you find on TikTok that's valuable. Here's what he said. I'll let us play out to his clip. In the meantime, guys, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. That being said, here's Mike. He's kind of saying everything I'm just saying here, and it's worth a listen.
For optimal results, the single most important factor is intensity of effort. The results you realize will be totally dependent on the energy you put forth.